Welcome back to Racing Rundown, and before we start off, I would like to wish everyone a good Saratoga meet. I'm recording this on opening day of Saratoga. This will probably be out Thursday night, so after the card is completed. So I'd like to wish everybody, before we get further on into this, a great start to the meet and a great meet overall. 40 great days of racing, and we're going to have plenty of stuff for Saratoga on Racing Rundown. And as you can tell by the title of this video, we're talking about the first grade one of many this meet, and that is the Diana Stakes, going 1.125 miles. We've got 6 horses for this race. We're going to talk about all of them the way that we usually do, and we're going to start off with the first horse, the first of 4 entered in this race for Chad Brown, very similar to some of the other grade ones that have been on the turf in New York this year. 3 or 4 Chad Brown horses. This race has 4, and this is Technical Analysis, the only one in this race that's trained by Chad Brown that's not owned by Peter Brandt. And Technical Analysis has been relatively consistent throughout her career. Only one poor effort, and I would really not even call that a poor effort in the Wonder. Again, there were plenty of excuses there for her, but a lot to like about Technical Analysis. Last time out in the Galleret, it was a class drop for her, certainly, but it was a career best effort. She won by over 3 lengths in there, earned a 96 speed figure. The figures in this race, as you can tell on the template, they're rather evenly matched with horses. I'm not someone who puts a lot of emphasis on speed figures, but I did want to put that out there. This is a very evenly matched group, but the effort last time out for Technical Analysis was a career best. 2 stakes wins at Saratoga last meet in the Lake George and the Lake Placid. She's shown herself to be a very versatile horse. She can be on the lead. She can also sit off of it just a bit and stalk close to the pace. I think she'll be the pace of this race because she has had success doing that, especially at Saratoga when she won the Lake Placid last year. And there's no one else really in here that's going to be battling for the lead with her. In Italian has shown speed and will continue to show speed likely in subsequent races, but she sat second last time in the Just a Game at Belmont behind Legs Galore, and I think that more of the same will come from In Italian in this race. I'll talk a little bit more about her when we get to her, but I think Technical Analysis will be the speed of this race. I also think you're going to get 3rd or 4th choice on her in this race, and she's going to be the 3rd price, or the 3rd highest price of the 3 Chad horses in this race. Obviously, Bleecker Street and Rougir shorter than her. I think she can win this race. I considered picking her for a good while because of the pace setup of this race. Ultimately, did not go with her, but I am going to pick her to hit the board in this race, include her in my trifecta for this race. Now we're going to move on to the number 2 horse in this race, Creative Flair for Charlie Appleby. Jamie Spencer ships in to ride her, and she's 8-1 on the morning line in this race. Very intriguing type for this race. I will put it out there, though. I do not expect that 8-1 to stay where it is. I think that she will take a lot of wise guy money in this race, potentially be shorter than both in Italian. I think she'll be shorter than in Italian, but potentially even shorter than Technical Analysis in this race, because Charlie Appleby does win at a very high percentage and does have a very good return on investment when he does run horses in the United States. So I think Creative Flair is going to take a good amount of wise guy money in this race. She had 2 runs in the United States last year, 3rd in the Saratoga Oaks, obviously at the same circuit, and then 4th on the Jockey Club Oaks last year. Didn't run post Jockey Club Oaks and ran at Maidan, her most recent start, in a Group 2 there back in February, and she won that race. So layoff is something, if you know Racing Rundown, layoff is something that I really don't like to take horses off of going into races. But given that she did win off of a significant layoff from the Jockey Club Oaks into that Group 2 at Maidan, I'm a little bit more willing to give her a shot with that. I thought she ran well last time, or last year, I should say, in the Saratoga Oaks. The race was kind of handed to Cone Lima from the outset, and she was, I didn't love the trip that she got in there. I thought it took her a little bit to get out, and then she kind of, veered in the stretch, and I thought that might have taken her off stride for just a moment and not allowed her to, at the very minimum, get up for second. She wasn't going to beat Cone Lima there because Cone Lima had the race handed to her. But the thing that really made me settle for Creative Flair, not the price, not Charlie Appleby, the run that she had last time at Maidan. Creative Flair stayed on really strongly toward the end of that Group 2 at Maidan back in February. She's wearing the white cap there. And if you go back and watch the replay of that race, Dubai Love, who was her stablemate wearing the red cap in that race, came up to her at about the 300-meter mark and looked like she was going to go by at points. And Creative Flair held her and Pevensey Bay, who was on the far side in the stretch run of that race. So that run was really what made me settle for Creative Flair in this race. And Creative Flair is going to be my top pick in this race. I'm going to take the likely wise guy horse for this race here off the break, something I normally don't like to do. But again, I laid out why I like Creative Flair in this race. We're going to move on now and talk about number 3 in this race, and that is the 6-5 favorite, Bleecker Street. A horse that I have been a believer in for a very long time. I had her in her first stakes win back in the Endeavor at Tampa, which I can't believe was already 5 months ago, just on a complete side note there. And the thing about Bleecker Street is she has just been very, very good the entire year. And that's really where I leave it with Bleecker Street. She has just been a good horse the entire year. She wins everything that she's asked to do. Runs a very credible race every single time. There's nothing bad you can say about Bleecker Street. She doesn't do it very impressively, but she gets the job done. And that's what makes it so difficult to take against Bleecker Street here. And I'm trying to not pick against her because of the price. And I'm not picking against her here because of the price. Again, I think Creative Flair has a pretty decent shot given the recent form that she's been in. But Bleecker Street has just been fantastic. The run in the New York last time was great. And, she's cutting back to 1 1/8 miles, but she ran so well at Churchill on Kentucky Oaks Day going 1 1/8 miles. So distance cut back is no problem. And like I said, she has just been so good the entire year. It's very difficult to find reasons to go against her. Her form from Tampa going back to the Hillsborough, definitely lesser competition than she's going up against in this race, but still very, very good efforts there to beat horses like a Grade 1 winner in Lady Spitespear in both of those races. There's a reason why I liked Bleecker Street early and often. I got off her for the New York. I'm not getting back on for this race, but the thing about Bleecker Street that's going to make her so difficult here is she wins every single time. She doesn't do anything wrong. There's not the angle of she's going to get stuck in traffic or she's going to be super wide or there's not going to be a pace in this race. There's all those things. It's just purely going to be is the talent that she showed in the New York going to be backed up here? And I absolutely understand anybody taking that and just saying, yeah, she is going to back that up. It's very difficult to not pick her here. I won't be, but I absolutely don't fault anybody who does because she has just blossomed into one of the best horses in the country over the last few months. And now we're going to move on to her stablemate, Rougir, who we thought was going to be the really good force in the Chad Brown barn. And to this point, it hasn't materialized for Rougir. Now, if we go back to last year for Rougir, she was a Group 1 winner in Europe. She won the Prix-Opera on the art card, came over to America for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Didn't run too well there, but the form for that race has come back spectacular, obviously with the Winner Loves Only You. My Sister Nat was really good. Warlike Goddess, Love. Even the horse who finished in front of her for 6th, the Ocean Road, Grade 1 winner in 2022. So the form from the Breeders' Cup last year has just been through the roof. And then Rougir's first start for Chad Brown was very good, the Bogue. And I didn't like it as much as everybody else did, but I liked it enough to take her against Bleecker Street, who I had picked 3 times before and been a believer in the entire year. And she just had nothing in the New York. She was just completely flat there. Now, Rougir has been a horse that has been very random throughout her career. It's kind of peaks and valleys for her. One race, she can win the Prix-Opera. Another time, she can run very poorly in other Group 1 efforts. So it's very iffy with Rougir looking at her for this race. And I absolutely understand somebody looking at her and saying, yeah, that last effort at Belmont was very bad, but there's not really a reason to explain it there. And, one of Eric, and Eric is not joining me for this, but one of Eric's favorite angles to go with is a horse coming out of a really bad race where the trainer can't explain the effort. And a lot of times it's a sign that those horses it was just a one-off thing for them. So that could certainly be the case for Rougir in this race. And I would certainly not fault anybody who's taking that angle with her. Me personally, I can't do that just because the last effort was just such a turnoff for me. So Rougir is going to be a horse I'm going to fade in here, but do so at your own risk because she does have some really good Group 1 form when she's at her best. We're going to move on now to the number 5 horse in this race, and that is Dalika, the longest shot in the race, and rightfully so the longest shot in the race. Dalika's not a bad horse, but just in her career, she does have a number of stakes wins, but she's always been a cut below. She did run a very credible effort last time, the Mint Julep behind Gam's Mission, who's a horse I have a lot of respect for. Eric has a lot of respect for, but looking at some of her most recent efforts, especially when she's running at races that I would consider of a Group One or of a Grade One quality, I should say. Disappointing effort in the First Lady. She was fifth in the Glens Falls. She's a horse that does her best running when she's running against lesser quality horses. And I said that this is a very evenly matched group. I should say the 5 of the 6 in here are evenly matched. Dalika is a step below them. Metrics, not necessarily as much as everything else, but just in terms of her form and past performances in stakes races, it's pretty clear that Dalika's the odd one out in this race. Now we're going to move on to the final horse in this race, and that is In Italian, the final of the 4 Chad Brown horses in this race. And In Italian is very interesting. Another horse that I considered using to a large degree in this race because she could potentially be the beneficiary of a very friendly pace setup for her. However, I don't think that's going to be the case for her. And even if it is, the last couple of races have kind of shown that, at least up to this point, In Italian is a good horse, can hit the board in these graded stakes races, but isn't necessarily a winner. Now, she did win the Honey Fox very nicely at Gulfstream, and I actually picked her against her very talented stablemate, Speak of the Devil, in the Distaff Turf Mile at Churchill. And a lot of the reason I picked her there was some of it because of the Honey Fox effort, but also because of the setup that I thought she was going to get there. And she got very favorable fraction. She was walking the dog there in that race, and it just turned out that Speak of the Devil was the better horse in the race at the end of the day. And then you go to her next start in the Justa game, same story. Her stablemate, Regal Glory, was just the better horse. In Italian, didn't walk the dog there the way that she did in the Distaff Turf Mile. She sat second, but the pace was a little bit faster. It was definitely faster there, but in the end, I didn't think that I looked at that and said, okay, well, then that means that she's going to be able to now come into a race where she's going up against horses of the quality of Rougir and Bleecker Street, be able to carry it there. She could hit the board. I like technical analysis a bit more than her, but if you're going to play that same angle that I'm playing with technical analysis, but instead apply that to In Italian and say she's going to be the one, lone speed, hang on, hit the board, and throw her in an exacta or a trifecta with one of her stablemates and someone else, or maybe both of her stablemates, I think that's how you use In Italian in this race. I don't think, like I said, I don't think she's a win candidate for this spot, but certainly a board hitter. She'll probably be the 4th choice of the Chads in this race, and definitely well worth a show wager. I might personally play that myself, even though I'm not including her in my trifecta, just as a saver to kind of get something there. But I think really your best angle is going to be using her underneath in this race, not a win candidate. With that said, we'll get to my picks for this race now. As I said, Creative Flair is my pick for this race. I'm going to use her on top of Bleecker Street. Again, Bleecker Street has just been so consistent. You can't not have her hitting the board here. She's going to come late. I'm going to hope that Jamie Spencer is able to get first run on Bleecker Street with Creative Flair here. So they'll run 1-2. And then technical analysis, I'm going to throw in at the bottom of that trifecta in there. It's not really going to be anything that pays super much. If anything, the exacta, if it runs 2-3, is probably the most lucrative thing that's going to come from this race, or at least of the plays that I have here. In Italian, show wager just as a saver. That's how I'm going to be playing this race. I'm leaving out Rougir, just can't do it after that last effort. But I do think that technical analysis is going to run a big race, and obviously, as I said, Creative Flair is my winner for this race. So with that being said, that's it for this preview. Be sure to check out the second half of episode number 167 of Racing Rundown. We did our Belmont Oaks recap last weekend on Sunday. That episode came out, and then we will also have our segment of Racing Rundown Around the World this week, where we will be talking about the Irish Oaks, which is headlined by Emily Upjohn. So hope to see you for that. We'll see you next week when we talk about the Coaching Club American Oaks and also the Haskell, not at Saratoga, but at Monmouth next week. Have a good one. We'll see you for all that, and hopefully we're able to help you out to some degree with this race.